So I've seen 10 more episodes of Diamond is Unbreakable. I am now up to episode 31, and I feel it's the perfect time to talk about the main villain of the series, Yoshikage Kira. And this guy, oh boy, he deserves multiple videos with everything he does in this show. But as you have guessed, we're only going to be discussing up to the events of episode 30, and thus the video for him in particular will be somewhat incomplete. I won't be talking about his story in full in this video, just around 90% of it, which is why you should subscribe and ring the bell. Not only will it help me, but I will be finishing up my thoughts about him likely in my next video about JoJo, which should be one of the last handful of videos I'll be putting out for Diamond is Unbreakable before I move on to part 5 to talk about that. So, let's talk about Yoshikage-san, shall we? So, believe it or not, Kira is somewhat a massive presence in this show throughout Diamond is Unbreakable. Most will know this because of one of the first scenes shows a disembodied hand. This is Kira's calling card of sorts, but not actually his most distinct one. That's saved for Morio's local radio jingle. Anytime that jingle is played, Kira is around somewhere, and not only is he around somewhere, he's getting ready to claim another victim for himself. It's a great way to identify him to the viewer or act as a trigger to show that we're about to see him do something not so good. It's so iconic to his character that whenever I hear that jingle, I can't help but sing along to it and think about Kira. This aspect is easily the most identifiable one to the viewer, among every other, and in my opinion is why he's so recognizable almost immediately. So like I said earlier, Kira is a constant fixture. He's always there in the background, and it isn't until episode 21 that he starts to get his own introduction, which for the next 10 or so episodes is still pretty much always pushing that Kira story, at least. And his first 2 episodes are solely dedicated to introducing this character in all of his glory. And what other way to do it than in the patented JoJo style? He has a hand of the victim and is seemingly taking it on a date, and they go to buy a sandwich, to which the hand punctures the plastic wrap and gets sandwich meat all over it. Sandwich stuff. And of course, since it's JoJo, he starts to chow down on them fingers in a public place. It's really disgusting. Which isn't anything new to JoJo, as Araki doesn't care what emotions you're feeling, it only matters if you're feeling in the first place. And also, it's just vaguely sexual enough as well to creep you out on that front. And if you're into sexy hands, please just comment below if that hand is actually sexy so we plebeians can try to understand that side of it. Anyways, besides sexy hands, or we don't know, anyways, moving on. So this episode is great because while he is enjoying his sandwich in a park, he puts the hand in his sandwich bag. Shigechi, though, accidentally picks up the bag with the hand, so Kira tails Shigechi, who has Josuke and Okuyasu along with him. Push comes to shove, basically Kira murders Shigechi, who may be the first victim we get to see in this show. I mean, Shigechi was in a pretty good set of episodes, and his introduction to the series was both comical and funny, but also told a great story about his character. What I also liked was Josuke and Okuyasu even continued to be friends with him after they got into a fight. It showed to us they could put all of that behind them, that they didn't let money ruin their friendship forever, and that they still liked each other. And for Shigechi as well, he was a person who was ostracized by people and didn't have many, if any, friends. So after all of this, when he redeems himself for doing what he did in those episodes, and finally getting those real friends, he is killed by Kira. And arguably, Shigechi didn't deserve any of it at all. His worst crime was being a dick and trying to keep the money for himself through underhanded tactics. At the end of the day, the guy was greedy, but that's it. So to see him be coldly murdered by the fucking hand guy? Well, needless to say, I was sort of not feeling the best about him. Shigechi, keep in mind, is a very entertaining character. You can't help but like this guy, even though he has a face only a mother could love. And the way he goes out also shows off an important aspect about Kira, and that's Killer Queen. Of course, a reference to Queen's song of the same name, which was released in 1974 off Queen's third album, Sheer Heart Attack. This stand is able to turn anything into a bomb. So this is exactly the way Shigechi is disposed of. Killer Queen is simply one of my favorite stands in JoJo right now. period. And it's for this ability to turn anything into a bomb. As we'll see, this fits into much of his personality of being the ultimate opportunist, a man who can seemingly become so hard to get to and do anything against. And even then, he may simply just slip away if you even give him an inch to do so. He's incredible in that sense. A true villain, much like Walter White from Breaking Bad or Lelouch from Code Geass. For example, my favorite scene so far with Kira is when he uses sheer heart attack, another Queen reference, to try and get rid of Koichi and Jotaro. In this killer set of episodes, pun intended, we see him basically be forced to go retrieve sheer heart attack and deal with the issues himself. This leads to easily some of my favorite scenes and episodes in JoJo currently right now. Kira just absolutely murders Koichi and almost kills Jotaro. It's important to note that Koichi recently just had Act 2 evolve into Act 3, which is how Koichi was able to cause Kira to come and try to retrieve sheer heart attack. Jotaro, though, makes the save, though beaten to within an inch of his life. After they're basically all knocked out, Josuke and Okuyasu finally arrive after being called to the scene by Koichi earlier. They ask Kira what the deal is. And after he is unable to pass off himself as an innocent civilian, he tries to cut his own hand off to make an escape, which he does. And before we continue, this is another instance showing that Kira isn't just some killer. He's once again an opportunist. Fearing nothing, he tries to play himself off as a bystander, a victim by collateral in this instance. Except Josuke and Okuyasu aren't 12-year-olds on Xbox trying to snipe you on Rust. No, they aren't spring chickens. He even tries to cut off his own hand. This just shows that Kira will do anything he can, and it doesn't matter as long as he lives. He says as much, almost as a promise to the audience and Josuke that he will make it out of this place alive, seemingly because he is willing the outcome to be in such a manner. I love this aspect about Kira so much. He's the heel that you want to see the conquering babyface defeat and get his comeuppance against. And I am waiting with bated breath because I know that when Josuke gets his revenge on Kira for murdering his friend, it will all be so incredible. So after that, Kira basically goes to the beauty parlor where he kills the same stand user in episode 20, which made Yukiko's face perfect so that it would make Koichi fall in love with her. Along with killing her and blowing her up, he kills someone and makes her swap their face before she gets killed by Kira. This leads to something I just never even expected from JoJo. Family man Yoshikage Kira. So to stay undercover and safe from anyone finding out who he is, he takes on the persona of the man he killed and stole his face from. Surprisingly, the man had a family, a wife and a kid. This kid is rather strange though, and sort of knows something is up, and when I do say strange, I mean it. This kid, Hayato, has a camera in their parents' room and spies on them in seemingly any situation. And I mean any situation. The wife, Shinobu, though, notices a change in her husband as well, but not in the same way Hayato does. Shinobu starts to fall in love all over again with her husband, who she really hasn't loved in a long time. She acts more like a schoolgirl in love than a married woman. She just loves this guy now. So much so that she's trying to do pretty much anything to get closer to him, including randomly yelling and jumping into his arms and even trying to seduce him at one point. That latter part actually almost gets her in trouble though, as Kira almost lets his murdering tendencies loose, but he is able to hold back. You see, Kira is still Kira, and if he kills Shinobu or even Hayato, then his cover is completely gone. But a surprising thing happens. After Shinobu sends him down to deal with a stray cat, he basically takes shards of glass and kills the poor thing. The cat had turned into a stand user, and he had to get rid of it quickly. So he buries Neko-chan in the front yard and all is good. Except this is JoJo, and it's really not, because as you probably could have guessed, by now, the cat is a plant. That's right, people, the expression pushing up daisies was used in the making of this stand. And honestly, this is another example of Araki being this super creative mind that for maybe any other show, this would have been a bad idea. But for JoJo, it's actually a really good one that shows that this guy can seemingly make anything work in this series. So, the cat eventually injures Shinobu, and this is where their relationship gets a little interesting. Yoshikage Kira is actually protecting her from Neko-chan, which he catches onto himself. Of course, on one hand, having her die would be bad, but maybe it could be something more. and I am excited to see which one of that it is, because either way would just be the icing on the cake of this Yoshikage Kira character. He's just so fascinating, and to have him possibly actually really fall in love with Shinobu, not just for her hands, would be funny and charming in a way. This guy who took over this other man's life ends up falling in love with his wife, but the wife thinks he just finally grew a pair, and Hayato is probably gonna still figure it out anyways. I mean, that's just so freaking weird and cool. I love it. Of course, we will see more on that front, as this is the last episode I've watched for JoJo. But I think Yoshikage Kira is one of the better main villains in JoJo, and I like him quite a bit. Of course, he's not Dio, but I do believe he's better than Dio Brando in Cars. And don't get me wrong though, Cars is a badass and a bastard to kill, and his send-off is one of the best even to this day. Plus his fight with Jonathan is easily one of the best parts in Phantom Blood itself. So I love Cars. He's great. And even Dio Brando, which the reason I separate those two, Dio and Dio Brando, is because I think Dio in Stardust Crusaders just comes off so much more like an important character than in Phantom Blood. So while they technically may be the same, I just like to make that distinction for myself, as I think Phantom Blood, in of itself, even deserves to be kind of fenced off from the others for how unique it is. Kira, though, stands as one of my favorites, and we're not even done with Diamond is Unbreakable yet, and that's because he's unlike any other villain we've seen. He's not like Dio, and he's nothing like Cars. He's just a coward and an opportunist. He would rather live without being caught and continue his murders than have to face anyone or anything in his way. Plus, he's just so weird that in real life, if you saw this guy, you would probably think he is some weird murderer anyways. He's that distinct in this JoJo, and along with Killer Queen, who is a fantastic stand that's a complete natural fit for him. It's honestly no wonder why so many people, including myself, like Yoshikage Kira, and that's why I can't wait to finish up the last 9 episodes of Diamond is Unbreakable that I have left to see. I desperately want to see what happens to Kira, and if Reimi Sugimoto will ever get justice for being murdered by Kira. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Comment down below what you think about Yoshikage Kira. Also, click on some of these videos if you find them interesting. Know that on Patreon, I have a $1 tier and above, which gets you access to literally everything on it. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching the video. Bye-bye.